Okay, hello and welcome to our show Wireless News. I'm Roberta Prescott, Latin editor, and I'm joined by James Hinman. He is a VP of Operator Solution at Opera. Um, why we just start this interview giving me a heads up about what Opera is doing across Latin America? What are the most important projects? What has Opera been working on here?
Sure. Opera has been working in LATAM since 2007, and initially we came out with our Opera Mini browser. And our Opera Mini browser is available through consumer downloads, but also through operators around the region. In the last few years, we've come out with new products for LATAM. Opera Max, which is a data compression application across your entire device. Sponsored Web Pass, which is an innovative way to do data retailing, and a subscription mobile store, which I believe we'll talk about a little bit. But yes, we've been with TIM Brazil since 2010. They're a very key customer for us within Brazil. We work with Nextel across Brazil, Mexico, and Argentina. And with America Movil, we actually have a regional agreement with them, and we're starting turning on markets one by one with them now.
And what kind of products and services these carriers that you just mentioned are they looking for?
You know, I think especially in LATAM where you've got some networks that are kind of constrained, still starting to move from 2G to 3G and 3G to 4G, anything that helps the user experience and gives a really strong quality of experience for end users. And that's great because that's what we do, and we've been doing it worldwide for many years now. The Opera Mini browser, really the key sort of differentiator for that browser is that it is so heavy on compression, and it gives a really fast, really clean experience, even if you're on a compromised network, and you can get compression up to 90%. And now as Brazilians and Mexicans and Argentinians move toward more video consumption, we've added the ability to do video optimization within our browsers. And this isn't just within Opera Mini, this is also within Opera for Android as feature phone users move to smartphones. We also have solutions for operators that actually can do optimization across their entire network, like Rocket Optimizer.
And I believe you have a case study with TIM Brazil regarding the Opera subscription mobile store. Can you give me details and what has Opera done in at TIM Brazil? What was the demand, the use case?
Sure. The subscription mobile store is kind of a branch of some of the things we were just talking about. What it is, it's an operator-branded app store that's targeted specifically at emerging markets, where usually people don't have credit cards to pay for apps, and they're not able to do pay per download in the traditional model. So what this does is it brings operators back into the app revolution and kind of lets them sell apps and games via a weekly subscription. And it's a really low-price subscription. What happens is users pay I think it's 199 real per month, and they get all-you-can-eat downloads. And they even get 7 days trial of free downloads. And we still have an Opera mobile store, which is a consumer-focused version. This is the operator-focused version. And it's got 300,000 apps and games and relationships with 40,000 developers. So we launched it in TIM Brazil last year, and actually it was almost exactly a year ago now. And what TIM did is they had any of the traffic for people's downloads and browsing of the store. They zero-rated that to just give you a little bit, kind of extra data to do this. They gave their users a 7-day trial period, and then they took those 300,000 games and apps and just picked the best, maybe 10,000 or so premium apps and games. And what we found is even after giving away all-you-can-eat downloads for 7 days, 88% of TIM's users continued after the 7-day free trial. And this thing is growing so fast. Brazilians obviously love this. There's a 42% month-over-month increase in new subscribers. So like I said, it's growing really fast. We're getting 38% month-over-month increase in revenues. And then the average customer lifetime of this is 20 weeks. So people, even though they can download whatever they want for free, they're staying for 5 months to get all the new stuff that comes into the catalog.
Mm-hmm. And is it only TIM Brazil that has adopted this kind of solution, or do you have other carriers interested on this? And my other question related to this is, what does what do carriers look for when they are searching for such as a solution? I mean, what are their motivation for this?
Well, also I'll answer your first question. So in Latin America right now, it's just live with Tim, but it's a relatively new concept that we were proving out over 2014. It's now live in 7 markets around the world. There's a couple of carriers in Indonesia, there's one in Russia, there's one in the Ukraine, there's 2 in Belarus, and Tim Brazil. Tim actually has been the most successful, and we found that a lot of our products do really, really well in Brazil in particular. I think operators in the region are really looking for things to kind of help them with their network issues. You know, people in Brazil obviously have, you know, big events that come every couple of years lately, you know, World Cup, you got Olympics coming up. So we have a product called Opera Max, which rather than just compress within a browser, actually compresses across the entire smartphone. It's an Android-based product. When we launched that, we actually soft launched it during the World Cup last year. And it was just hugely popular in Brazil. In fact, Brazil is our biggest market. And it just kind of shows us that Brazilians are hungry for ways to extend the life of their data plan and to kind of control how their phone uses data. Like I said, Opera Max isn't just in a particular browser. It's all browsers, and it's not just one app. It's all apps. So you can kind of pick and choose and say, I only want to use this one on Wi-Fi. I want to turn this one off entirely. And it gives you up to 50% more out of your data plan. I think that is really key to the markets that we work in across Latin America.
Looking at the trends that you are, regarding the trends that you are looking for, what do you think challenges are for both telecommunication sectors across Latin America and for your company in particular?
Yeah, I mean, I think that networks are going to have a tough time keeping up with the demands of their users as people move toward more video and all-you-can-eat streaming audio services like Spotify and things like that. As those really catch on in Latin America, people just transferring large files, there needs to be an infrastructure in place where if the networks can't handle it, at least some of the browsers and apps on their phone can actually make that easier. So that's really a big focus of ours. Another challenge for LATAM is how data plans work. And one of the things that I think you're seeing across all of Latin America is this move towards sponsored data and the ability to actually provide a small data pack for users rather than kind of the big old bundle that most people get with megabytes that they don't quite understand. So we actually launched something in Tim Brazil last year with Buscapé, Buscapé sponsored 1 day of free internet for any user on Tim Brazil's network, and it was a sponsored web pass is what we call it. And what all the user had to do was provide their email address to Buscapé, and they would get a day of free data. So that's one free day of data where they didn't have to go over their plan. They could just do whatever they wanted. And they also got a credit for $1 of voice service as well. So those sort of innovative data retailing plans, I think you're going to see a lot more of that, and that's going to be a challenge for operators to kind of figure out how that all works.
But do you think in somehow the net neutrality rules, and we just approved what we can talk about internet law, Marco Civil da Internet, do you think in anyhow these net neutrality rules can not allow this kind of partnerships or this kind of data, sponsored data plans?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's something that we look at very closely. We don't see it as in conflict at all because we're not giving a fast lane for anybody. What we're giving more is the ability to get online for free for a set period of time. It could be 3 minutes, it could be an hour. For Opera, it's all about expanding access to the internet through mobile devices, through desktop, etc. So we see it as a way of kind of bringing the emerging world online, and these ways of doing so are not, necessarily prioritization for one group or another. It's just a new way to do it rather than the typical megabyte-based plans.
Okay, I see. And I think it can be interesting if we look at Brazilian landscape, for example, that we saw the sales of smartphones surpassing the future phones. But instead, on the opposite side, we still have the prepaid much bigger than we have the postpaid. So I believe this is a huge challenges the carriers are facing right now. Do you agree with that?
I do, and I think what you find is that a lot of vendors and kind of infrastructure people like ourselves focus on the developed world first. Well, where Opera is most popular is in the developing world. So we don't think postpaid first, we think prepaid first, because that's where most of our customers are in markets like Brazil and Indonesia and India and places like that, where people are now just beginning that migration from feature phones to smartphones. And we see across LATAM that it's still a good feature phone world, and Opera Mini has been the favorite browser of feature phone users for a long time. We still do things on Java and Symbian and things like that, but this subscription mobile store that I was telling you about, one of the things that makes it special is it's not just on Android or iOS, it's also on Java and Symbian and even BlackBerry and Windows Mobile. So it's a cross-platform app store, so no matter what phone you have, you can take advantage of this.
You mentioned that you work with some carriers regarding the World Cup that we had last year. Any plans for the upcoming Olympic Games that will be held in Rio de Janeiro next year?
Yeah, I mean, nothing specific other than making sure that as many sort of Opera compression and optimization products are available for Brazilians in those markets and people that are roaming into the markets for those years. These events always seem to do well for us in the sense that people are looking for solutions when networks get really constrained, and we'll see kind of how advanced Brazilian networks are by mid-2016. But for those times when users are feeling the strain, we've definitely got a solution for them.
So thank you a lot for this interview and for clarifying some interesting topics regarding Latin America operations.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time.
So I'm Roberta Prescott, and follow all Latin America stories at rclwireless.com.